My girlfriend texted, "Don't wait up, I'm with someone who gets me tonight." I replied, "Thanks for the closure." Then I forwarded this text to her conservative parents and arrived at her hotel room with them, and the drama exploded. I'm 31 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've planned everything: my finances, my career path, even my grocery lists. And for the last 5 years I was planning a life with my girlfriend Jessica. We had the nice apartment, the one with the big windows, and the brutal lease agreement. I thought we were building a real future together. Turns out, she was just subletting space in my life until something better came along. It all fell apart last Tuesday. It was late, probably after 10 p.m. I was on the couch, half watching some documentary, just waiting for her to get home from what she'd called a work dinner. My phone lit up. It was her. "Jessica, hey, don't wait up. Things are running late." Classic Jessica, vague. I didn't think much of it. "Me, no problem. Everything okay?" A few minutes ticked by, then another text landed. And this one felt less like a message and more like a verdict. It was so obviously not meant for me. "I'm not coming home. I'm with someone who actually sees me. Don't wait up." I just stared at the screen. There was no explosion of rage, no sudden urge to punch a wall. The only thing I felt was this strange, cold clarity. It was like finally finding the solution to a problem that had been nagging me for months. All the little things, the late nights, the way she'd angle her phone away from me, the constant little critiques that made me feel like I was failing some invisible test, it all just snapped into focus. This wasn't a crack in the foundation. This was a demolition notice. And my first thought, it wasn't about the betrayal. It was about logistics. My brain completely skipped the heartbreak and went straight into project management mode. The project? Extricating my life from hers. That's when the idea formed, not out of rage, but out of a need for clean lines. See, Jessica's entire universe revolves around her image, especially the one she presents to her parents. They're traditional, old money types, and they see me as the sturdy, reliable anchor for their wonderfully creative but hopelessly chaotic daughter. And they co-signed our lease. That was the detail that mattered most. Her father, Richard, a man whose credit score is probably higher than my IQ, had put his name on the line for us. I took a screenshot of the text. Then I forwarded it to a group chat I had with her parents, the one we'd made for emergency contacts. All I added was a single sentence. "Me. Jessica sent this to me by mistake. She won't answer her phone. I'm worried she's in trouble. Her mother, Susan, called me within 30 seconds. Her voice was a tight wire of panic. What is this? What does that mean? Where is she?" "I don't know," I lied, and the lie felt clean, "but I can track her phone's location. I'm on my way to you now. We can go together." The next hour and a half was just a blur. The drive to their house in the suburbs, Susan's frantic questions ricocheting around the car, Richard's grim, silent presence beside me. He didn't say much, just sat there, his jaw set like stone. The air was thick with unspoken fears. This wasn't a triumphant ride to victory. It felt more like a funeral procession, for something I hadn't even known was dead. The GPS led us to a sleek, pretentious hotel downtown. At the front desk, I was the calm one. "My girlfriend Jessica is a guest here," I said to the young man at the counter. "She sent a distressing text, and she isn't answering her phone. We're very concerned." He gave me the standard polite refusal. "I'm sorry, sir, I can't confirm if she's a guest or provide a room number. It's our privacy policy." "Please," Susan whispered, her face pale and streaked with tears. "We're her parents. We just need to know she's safe." The clerk looked uncomfortable. He tried calling the room. No answer. That's when Richard stepped forward. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The authority just rolled off him. "My daughter is in this building," he said, his voice low and heavy. "Her phone is off. We are her emergency contacts. A wellness check is not an unreasonable request. So you can either have your security manager escort us to her room now, or my next call will be to the police to report a missing person at this establishment. I'm sure you'd prefer we handle this internally." The clerk swallowed hard. He picked up his phone, and 5 minutes later, a burly security guard was leading us to the elevator. Room 308. The guard knocked firmly on the door. "Security." We heard shuffling inside, a man's voice sounding annoyed. "We're fine in here. I need to confirm that with the registered guest, sir, the guard said, his voice firm. Please open the door. A long, tense pause. Then the door clicked open. And there was Jessica. She was wearing nothing but a hotel robe, her hair a mess. Behind her, I could see a guy I vaguely recognized from her work photos, David. He was shirtless, looking completely bewildered. Jessica's face was a rapid-fire sequence of emotions. First, confusion at the security guard. Then, a flicker of annoyance when she saw me. And finally, a wave of absolute gut-wrenching horror as her eyes slid past me and landed on her parents, standing there like stone statues. "Mom? Dad?" she stammered, pulling the robe tighter around herself. What are you doing here?" Richard just held up his phone, showing her the screenshot of my text. He didn't say a single word. The gears in Jessica's head were spinning at 1,000,000 miles an hour. I could practically see her searching for a story, for any escape hatch. It's not what you think," she began, her voice already starting to crack. She pointed a shaking finger at me. Things have been so hard. He's been so distant. I just needed some space. David was just being a friend." It was a clumsy, pathetic attempt. It reeked of pure desperation. David, seeing the look on Richard's face, wisely started scrambling for his shirt. "I should probably go." "You're not going anywhere," Richard said. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the air like a razor. Susan just made this small, wounded sound. She wasn't even looking at Jessica anymore. She was looking at me, and her eyes were filled with this dawning, devastating understanding. The lie was so much worse than the cheating. The immediate, reflexive instinct to save her own skin by throwing me under the bus. That was the real poison. Jessica finally turned her eyes to me. The mask of the victim fell away, and for a split second, I saw pure, unadulterated rage. She finally got it. This wasn't an argument she could talk her way out of. This was an audit of her character. And her accounts were empty. "You," she hissed, her voice low and venomous. "You did this." "No, Jessica," I said, my voice perfectly even. "You wrote the text." I paused, letting it hang in the air. "I just made sure the right people read it." I looked at the security guard, then at her parents. "I think you have it from here." And I turned, and I walked away. I didn't listen to the shouting that erupted before I even reached the elevator. There was no feeling of victory. It wasn't satisfying. It was just closure. The logical, brutal, and necessary kind. Update 1. It's been a week, a long one. I've read all the comments and messages. It's strange, feeling validated by thousands of strangers online. But here we are. A lot of you asked what happened right after I left them at the hotel. I went to a coffee shop down the street and just waited. About an hour later, Susan called me. She was crying so hard, I could barely understand her. They were home. Richard wanted to see me. When I got to their house, he was sitting in his study, a glass of whiskey untouched on his desk. The man looked like he'd aged 10 years in a few hours. All he said was, "I apologize for my daughter's breach of character. We will handle it." Meanwhile, my phone was a war zone, a constant barrage of texts from Jessica. They went through all the stages. First rage, "You are a vindictive monster." Then the manipulative bargaining, "Can we please just talk? Don't throw away 5 years." And finally, predictably, the blame. "You pushed me to this with your emotional distance." I read them, I archived them, and I felt nothing. It was like reading a case file about someone else. The next morning, I focused on the big problem, the apartment. I pulled up our lease agreement. Section 12, early termination. It was an $8,000 kill shot. 2 months rent, plus we'd forfeit the entire security deposit. A financial nuke. My first impulse was just to pack my stuff and disappear. Leave her to deal with the fallout. But that was messy. I wanted a clean cut. So I drafted an email to the property management company. I CC'd both Jessica and Richard. The subject line was simple: lease termination inquiry. "To whom it may concern," I wrote, "my partner Jessica and I have broken up, and I need to be removed from the lease agreement for our unit. I am willing to pay my 50% share of the early termination penalty immediately. Please advise on the next steps." I hit send. Then I packed a week's worth of clothes and checked myself into a bland, soulless corporate hotel. And that's where my neat little plan hit a wall. The property manager replied within a few hours, and it was a firm, polite no. Dear Sir, the email read, as per Section 17 of your lease agreement, all lessees and co-signers are jointly and severally liable. The full termination penalty must be paid in a single transaction before any party can be released. We cannot accept partial payments. Of course, it was never going to be that easy. My plan was dead. Jessica called me from a blocked number, screaming, "You're trying to ruin me. I don't have that kind of money. You know I don't." "That sounds like a conversation for you and the co-signer of the lease," I said, and for the first time my cold facade cracked a little. I was angry. "You made the decision to end this in a hotel room with another man, Jessica. The consequences of that are yours to manage." I hung up the phone. I felt stuck. I was still on the hook for all of it. And for a second, I really thought, this is it. The revenge backfired. I'd have to pay the whole thing myself just to get away from her. Then an email from Richard landed in my inbox. The subject line was just one word, lease. The email was just as brief. "I will handle this. Send me your half. I will remit the full payment and terminate the agreement. Let me know what day you will be out of the apartment." He was cutting his losses, and he was cutting his daughter out with brutal surgical efficiency. He wasn't helping her. He was protecting his own credit. Jessica had made herself a liability, and Richard deals with liabilities. I sent him my half of the money. The cost hurt a lot. I sat there in that sterile hotel room looking at the huge dent in my savings account, and the reality of it all just crashed down on me. This wasn't a game. This was my life. 5 years, a home, a future, all of it, liquidated. And for the first time I felt this deep gut-wrenching grief. Not for her. Not anymore. I was grieving for the man who had so happily planned that future. My plan was working, but it was costing me too. Update 2. It's been a month. The dust is starting to settle, and it's revealing a landscape that is stark and unfamiliar. Richard was true to his word. He paid the full termination fee. The lease was broken. We had 30 days to get out. And then, as I later found out from a still sympathetic Susan, he presented Jessica with a formal, notarized loan agreement for her half of the penalty, complete with a strict repayment schedule. In that moment, he wasn't her dad. He was her creditor. Jessica, of course, tried to spin the narrative. She posted vague nonsense on her Instagram stories. Things about surviving psychological warfare and escaping a controlling environment. A few of our mutual friends, the ones who only ever saw our life through her curated posts, they bought it. I was unfriended. I got a few DMs calling me a monster. It was a harsh lesson in how quickly people will believe the most dramatic story. She tried to get me to help her move. A text came through from a number I didn't recognize. "I can't do this alone. It's 5 years of our stuff. Please." A flicker of the old me, the fixer, almost answered. But then I remembered the coldness of her text. That casual dismissal of our entire life. I texted back, "I've hired movers for my things. They will come on the 30th. Please have my belongings boxed and labeled in the living room. They are instructed not to enter any other part of the apartment. I'll handle my things. You handle yours." The silence was my answer. And David, the man who saw her? Apparently, his vision cleared up pretty quick. Once he realized her safety net was gone. No me, no nice apartment, no unconditional financial backing from her parents. He vanished. Susan told me he stopped answering Jessica's calls about a week after the hotel incident. Jessica couldn't afford movers for her own things. I know this because I got a passive-aggressive Venmo request from a mutual acquaintance for $20. The note just said, "Pizza for moving Jessica's crap." I declined it. The day my movers came, they had my life cleared out in under an hour. My new apartment is smaller, emptier. As I was unpacking, I found something she must have packed in one of my boxes by mistake. Her old sketchbook. From the first year we were together. I almost threw it straight in the trash, but something stopped me. I opened it. It was full of sketches. Of me. Reading on the couch. Making coffee. Sleeping. They were candid and full of a tenderness that felt like it belonged to another lifetime. The woman who drew those pictures, she was real. The love we had, that was real too. It had just died, and she had let it rot while I was still trying to water a dead plant. And that was the moment the dam finally broke. I didn't cry for the manipulative stranger she'd become. I cried for the woman I had once loved. I cried for the life that was real right up until the moment it wasn't. It wasn't a calculated move. It wasn't part of the plan. It was just a painful, necessary bonfire of the past. Final update. 6 months. It feels like a lifetime ago. My new apartment is starting to feel like home. It's my space. The silence is my own. I started going to therapy. My therapist calls my methodical response to the breakup a highly effective trauma shield. We're working on what happens now that the shield is down. Jessica and I have had zero contact. I still hear things, indirectly. She's living in a tiny studio apartment across town. Her relationship with her parents is undergoing significant restructuring, as Susan put it in one of her occasional sad texts. Her messages are always brief. Thinking of you. Hope you're well. I keep my replies polite but short. I will not become their surrogate son. I won't be a living monument to their daughter's failures. The social circle I thought I had was a casualty of the war. People don't like drama. They don't like being forced to choose a side. And many of them chose the path of least resistance, which was just to fade away. That part stings more than I expected. Revenge isn't clean, it leaves shrapnel. The ending to this story isn't neat. It isn't me riding off into the sunset. It's me, last week in the grocery store. I was in the checkout line, just scrolling on my phone, when I heard a laugh. It was hers. Unmistakable. My heart did this painful little flip in my chest. I looked up, and there she was, just a few feet away. She looked smaller. The vibrant confidence she used to wear like a second skin was just gone. She looked tired. She was with some guy I didn't recognize, and she hadn't seen me. I didn't say anything. I didn't confront her. I just abandoned my cart right there. Milk, bread, the boring staples of my new life. And I walked straight out of the store. I got in my car and just drove for a few minutes, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I just felt this profound, hollow nothingness. The ghost is still there. Most days it's quiet, but some days it laughs in a grocery store aisle. My revenge worked. I took a situation designed to humiliate me, and I turned it back on its creator. I enforced consequences. I defended my own dignity. But there's no trophy for it. There's no victory lap. There's just the quiet, empty space where something used to be, and the slow, deliberate, and sometimes lonely work of building something new in its place. And for now, that has to be enough.